Hello and what's up, political peeps? I am your host, Arav Kapoor, and this morning I am joined by a longtime firefighter that is beloved within his community in the beautiful town of Fairfield, Connecticut, Mr. Brian Madia. Mr. Madia, welcome to the GeoPolitical.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super glad to be talking to you about the great things you do here in Fairfield. So let's dive right into this. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I was out there till about, let's say, 1996, graduated from high school, went to Mercyhurst College for a little bit, played some volleyball, moved here to Connecticut with my family. Tried some courses at Sacred Heart, some art classes, also found a love, and a community around volleyball. And yeah, have three wonderful kids, wonderful wife. Yeah.
Definitely. So now, as a transition to that, you mentioned you tried some things in the area, you grew up in Pittsburgh. It's also my understanding, based on the introductory conversation, the emails that we exchanged, that you did go into the United States Air Force Reserve. So while you were going into the Air Force Reserve, did you have specific plans to later move on to the Department of Defense's Fire Training Center, or was the Air Force Reserve its own thing, and then you later determined that you were wanting to go into the field of firefighting?
So yes, I believe that what really happened is that I kind of knew that I needed to, in my early 20s, I needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
I knew that I was set on some sort of service activity, whether it was teaching, nurse, EMT, police, fire, military.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity in town, and there's some other volunteer companies around the area, Trumbull, Monroe. So I joined one of these volunteer companies, and pretty much right off the bat, I just fell in love with the career. And I just said to myself, I got to figure out a way to do this for the rest of my life. So, through the volunteer company, through Rescue 15 in town, I was able to then start schooling on my own with Fire 1 and Fire 2.
Yeah.
I was looking at a lot of the towns around me and, looking at what they required in order to be hired. And a lot of them needed EMT. So I went down to Greenwich EMS, where I obtained my EMT certification. I kept testing in the area. And I knew that sometimes the testing process takes some time. So I said to myself, like, what else can I do while waiting for a phone call for employment? Since I was drawn to the military for no real reason other than wanting to serve, I met with a lot of recruiters, and I just felt that the Air Force Reserve and their ability to put me through the DoD Fire Academy was just the right match for me. I loved the process. I loved boot camp. It was quite an adventure.
And when you say boot camp, what did that consist of?
Well, it consisted of, I guess, stressing you out to see if you can handle stress, being yelled at a lot, making your bed, drilling, marching, physical agility, stuff like that.
Well, some days I can't even make my own bed, so that's definitely a start. So continuing on this, during your childhood, when you mentioned you were always inspired to do some kind of service, were there any specific factors, if it's people or books you may have read, movies, that encouraged you to take on this role and serve the public?
I would say for the most part, it was just that I really had a draw to people in general. I like being around people. I consider myself always a bit of a problem solver, and I would say that those were really the big factors. No real books or anything like that, just a desire to help people.
A desire to help people. Wow. So transitioning from this, after you were at the Department of Defense Academy and Fairfield finally gave you an offer, you had to move to the Connecticut Fire Academy at Windsor Locks. So how long did you spend there, and what challenges may have you faced, and how did you continue to pursue firefighting despite these challenges?
So I would say while I was at the Connecticut Fire Academy, I feel like prior to that, I had met most of the challenges head on. Like I feel like I was in a position where I knew what I wanted to do. There was going to be nothing that got in my way. So for me personally, I had already gone through Fire 1 and Fire 2 on my own with Rescue 15. I went through boot camp. I went through the DoD Fire Academy, which was basically all the same curriculum again, Fire 1, Fire 2. So when I got to the Connecticut Fire Academy, it was a fun experience because I got to help other people get through it who had never seen the material before. So that was a wonderful opportunity for me to, almost like stay out of the books because I pretty much have them memorized at that point, and help others pursue their careers. But I did see times where, I watched other people have to work through certain things. Like, we all look at fires on TV, like Hollywood fires. You see them in the building. It's so much different, in real life. Like you're right next to your partner and you don't even know they're there. It's so blacked out. Another thing that people struggled with was confined space. We're gonna, make you go low profile and go through this tiny tube. And we watched people kind of just say, nope, that's not for me. So I was lucky I didn't, I didn't come into any of that personal confrontation. And it was nice to help other people through that.
Wow, that's really a spectacular course to take. But given that you had already memorized this material, was it mandatory for you to still attend Connecticut Fire Academy, even though you could prove that you took the same material at the Department of Defense?
Yes, it was mandatory at the time. They've kind of changed their regulations now with the town, or their requirements, that if you've had the fire academy before, you can be a lateral transfer, or you may not need to go to the schooling. They hired me. There was a brief time before I would be going to the fire academy, and Chief Bisson, who was our training officer at the time, he kind of tested me with what Fairfield thought I needed. He found that I was competent, so he allowed me to take the line. So I got to start riding the trucks, and I even went to my first structure fire within my first 8 days. Wow. And then eventually I was just basically shipped off to the academy, and that was about 13 weeks. I believe it was about 10 to 13 weeks away from home.
Okay, cool. So moving on, transitioning from that to talk more about the current great job that you do as the Fairfield Fire Department, collaborating with your fellow firefighters within the town of Fairfield. Can you describe to us, like, a minute by minute after somebody calls 911 to report a house fire?
Sure. So we'll say, like you make a phone call to 911, it goes to our dispatch center, which is a regional dispatch center. It's a new dispatch center. It used to be under the police department down on Reef Road. Now it's at Sacred Heart. It's changed in the concept where there's many towns there in the same room. The phone call comes in. The dispatcher's job is to start collecting and gathering information, asking questions to determine what kind of call. Because, yes, we have structure fires, but we have EMS calls. We've got accidents with injuries, building collapse, trench rescue. There's so many calls that we go to. So they start then toning us out. Like, they have buttons down there, and those buttons go to the fire stations and alert us to that we need to respond, where we're responding to, and what kind of response or what we're responding to. I think I said that twice, but so then let's say it is a structure fire. You got a couple people in the engine and the ladder. We are talking to each other, and sometimes we know ourselves so well that we just know what we need to do when we get there. You know, a lot of times, you know, like the person in the back, they're gearing up, they're turning on meters so that they can meter a home if there's, you know, an odor. They're getting their tools ready. They're just going through their mental checklist that we've been training so that it's pretty much, you know, second nature to us.
Yeah. And then by the time you get to the house, what is like the approximate time frame that it takes from the moment that call is made?
It's relatively quick. You know, like we don't really have that information, but we always try and keep it. I believe it's the standard is like under 3 or 4 minutes, and we're pretty darn close to that.
And usually, how long are your shifts? And in a shift, how many calls do you have to go on generally, typically?
Typically, a lot of our primary calls are EMS, and it really can vary from day to day or holiday. You know, like Thanksgiving, we're definitely going to more, you know, smoke in a structure, burnt food. But it can range anywhere from 10 to 25 calls a day.
Wow. And how long is your shift?
So we do 24-hour shifts. So we report in at 7:30 in the morning, and we get relieved at 7:30 in the morning. So we spend a full day with each other. So it's almost like, you know, what we do at home, we do at the firehouse together.
And you guys get tired?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of us are better at dealing with lack of sleep than others. I don't need much sleep, surprisingly.
Okay. And then given that, I'll throw in this extra question here. How do you go, well, working 24-hour shifts at the fire department, how do you mentioned your wife and kids earlier, how do you maintain a proper work-life balance with the number of shifts you take on, etc.?
I just consider myself very lucky that, you know, I look at it as my family allows me to do this job. It has its definite risks. But the nice part is I feel like I've always said this to Stacy, that I am always so impressed at how impressive the Fairfield Fire Department is, and our crews, our people, our members. I work with such bright people that could be doing anything else they want, but they chose this career. And just having that is helps you sleep at night, and hopefully it helps my wife sleep at night.
Yeah, that team is truly spectacular. You know, transitioning to another, I guess, instance, in the event of like a crime being committed, which may involve fire, how do you as a fire department, maybe going into a structural fire or going into some smaller fire, how do you ensure the safety of civilians as well as the putting out the fire in a timely fashion, while being sure not to tamper with evidence that may be crucial for the police department?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question. And truthfully, every call has a level of investigation, whether it is criminal intent or, you know, arson or just an accident. You know, when we go to an automobile accident, you know, we have a discussion with PD, and, you know, a lot of times what will happen is we'll have a car wreck. You know, we deal with patient care first, then, you know, like we start to clean up the scene and the hazards, like it's leaking oil all over the place. So we'll use speedy dry, but we coordinate that with the cops because they're doing their investigation, because they do their investigations on the road. When it comes to a structure fire, we're very aware of putting the fire out and then kind of like holding it in, a holding pattern. And we call the fire marshal's office. They have somebody come respond to the scene, and they start their investigation. And in a way, sometimes like automobile automobile fires, the shift commander, who's also a fire marshal, will start and trying to determine where the fire started in a automobile also. And I don't think I'm jumping to conclusions on this, but this is also how recalls on cars, recalls on furniture come to be, because we notice an uptick in, hey, people keep cutting themselves on this piece of furniture, or this car keeps having this fire right behind the dashboard. So people are collecting that data beyond us, but we're providing them that information.
Wow. So I assume you guys don't ever like put a scene away and forget about it until you have determined the exact like cause and effect situation of each fire that you go and respond to.
Correct. We're always doing our best to pinpoint, at least the area of origin.
Okay, that's good to know. So now, when responding to certain calls, and you just clarified to me that you interact heavily as a firefighter with the police and medical departments. When going on the call, how may you like interact with people beyond the town of Fairfield, or maybe other fire departments in the town and other federal agencies?
Well, like with our own stations, we have 5 stations. Because we respond together, we have to train together. Let's just say like each house, each fire station also has their set of different tools. Like to put it simply, like engine 1 has an engine with a ladder on the top of it, and a big truck called the rescue, which is just a giant, massive toolbox. Station 1 also has a boat down at the South Benson Marina. Engine 2 has, a truck and an engine, and the shift commander's car. Engine 3 has the hazmat trailer and a foam trailer. 4's also has a boat, which is down in Southport. And 5's, Station 5 is very unique in the sense is it's always going to take longer up in that Congress Street, Burr area for other resources to get there. So they're kind of on their own a little bit longer than most. With other agencies, just like a lot of these resources, other towns can ask for these resources. Okay. So just because we have a trench rescue trailer, Bridgeport may say, we need help. They have their trench rescue stuff, but they may need more equipment, so they can call us. So we call that mutual aid. So with Bridgeport's having a few fires and they just don't have enough trucks at that point to do the next fire, we start backfilling them. If we have a structure fire, you're going to see Westport start covering Station 1. You're going to start seeing Bridgeport covering Station 2. So we all work together when our resources are starting to dwindle. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah, that helps a lot. But would there be any economic relationship in that? Or is that just helping out of mutual, like, I'll help you if you help me? Or
it is
would you exchange money?
It's the first one. It's, okay. we are here to help each other. We are here to protect people. There's no cost on helping somebody else, some other community.
So you just described the different roles that each of the engines may play throughout the town. So when going on a call, how do you determine if you just need, like, for example, one of those smaller fire trucks versus a full engine? How do you determine that on the fly when the 911 call just came in?
Correct. And I think it's exactly that. It's like dispatch has a large, they have a big responsibility of starting off every call correctly by giving us the right resources right off the bat. We always say it's better to throw a lot at something because we can always, like I told you before, I'm kind of like the shift commander's aide. I drive Chief Gamola and Sherwood and Caliper and Case around, and we'll get to a scene and we'll determine that maybe it's not as big of a fire, and we can start sending trucks back to a fire station. But a lot of that starts with dispatch being our ears by listening to the caller, and then we get out there and we start using our other senses to determine what we need.
Okay, so you just take everything and then you can take back as needed.
Correct, exactly. You send more.
Okay. And you said that you were like the shift commander's eyes and ears. What vehicle do you drive in that role?
So currently, like with the Fairfield Fire Department, like in Bridgeport, you have pump operators who only drive the pump. In Fairfield, we all do the same job. So anybody could be put into my position at any time. Like last night, I was driving engine 2 because their car driver was at work. So yes, I currently am what I would call driving car 3, which is the shift commander's car. And our objective is just to get out there as quickly as possible and start de-escalating the scene.
So now moving on to something a little more heavy. As you know, the attacks on in New York City on September 11th of 2001 there was a lot of firefighters, and it left a big impact on the firefighting community because of all the firefighters who died and suffered from long-term injuries and who saved many, many people during these atrocious attacks. So can you elaborate to us a little bit more on how these attacks may have changed the world of firefighting? And I know you were just getting started back in 2001, but if you have any ideas on how this may have developed due to the ongoing risk of terrorism?
Yeah, like you said, this was a little bit before me. I wasn't too far after it. So I would say I kind of stepped into a profession that probably already made the adjustments. But from what I remember, I think there were a lot of communication issues around September 11th that needed to be rectified. That agencies had different information, and it wasn't getting to the other agencies. So maybe police or fire had something, but it was getting to the other agency a little slower than it should have. So I believe they brushed up on communications. In a recent conversation with Chief Sherwood, he made a good point about, September 11th was probably the act started us thinking about cancer in the fire service. Because like you said, there was a large loss of life. But I want to say till, now we've lost just as many firefighters who worked on the pile from cancer, from breathing in the toxic plume that was down there. So I think it was eye-opening in the sense of like, so what else, over the course of our career, what are we breathing in and how is that affecting us? And we do know that firefighters have a, significantly increased risk of developing cancers over their career than the general public, because of the things we breathe in. It's not even that we breathe them in. It's just, we have an SCBA on, but our gear has the cancer causing agents on it and in it. And, that's off gassing and it's right below our noses. So I believe 9/11 also really started to make us fixate on cancer in the fire service. Correct.
Transitioning to another crucial topic in the firefighting world, lithium-ion batteries have been increasing given the harsh fires that these produce when used improperly. How is the Fairfield Fire Department informing people about the dangers of these batteries,
Mhm.
and what kind of responses do you have to deal with to fight these harsh fires?
Well, we have tons of resources on the trucks um, to handle these situations, from like these electronic handles that go into the charging port, so it shuts down the car. It feels like it's being charged so that it won't send energy to other parts of the car. We have a giant fire blanket that we can put over an automobile to help start the smothering process. With automobile accidents, it's not like a normal car fire. These batteries are underneath the floor pan, and they are hard to access. So it just takes copious amounts of water to put these fires out. As for what the fire department is doing, on our website, which you can go to our Facebook page,
Yeah.
it's like right up front. It's big and
No,
bold
yeah,
and
I was on there. There's like warnings on lithium-ion batteries.
correct. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
information. There's a lot of videos. And also just the bigger the battery, the bigger the catastrophe is going to be. I mean, it just seemed like a lot of it is like doing the proper thing. If you
Yeah.
need to replace your battery, replace it with something that the vendor would give you. It's not always best to go out on Amazon or onto the internet and just get some cheaper battery, because it's just not tested the same way.
Okay.
You always got to handle these things with care. If you're dropping them, then you need to watch and say, hey, is my laptop getting a little warmer than usual? And that's usually a warning sign. You should be, like a lot of people have motorized bikes and motorized scooters. They have big components inside. Those things, if you have the ability to charge them outside the home, you should, like in a garage or something like that. If you have to charge them inside, you just don't want them in line of your egress, or your exit, stuff like that. But there's so much information online on our website. And we have a training facility in town down on One Broad Highway.
Yeah.
There's always classes down there for the public.
Yeah, definitely. And about these batteries, how often do you typically go on to calls relating to lithium-ion batteries, and what kind of struggle and how long do you like typically spend on these calls, given you just described the copious amounts of resources needed to put them out?
Right. The car fires take a long time. It takes hours to put them out before we can start moving them. Like any fire, you don't want to start moving it to another place until it's completely out. I've seen a lot of, it worries me at my house. Like I'll be like, hey kids, we got to go somewhere. They plug in their device and they leave it on the couch. And I'm very cognizant of that. Like, I'm like, no, like I move it away from a fabric couch. I watch a lot of laptops in dormitories where they leave it on these big comforters and it burns the comforter. So it's not a huge fire and you can get rid of the laptop quick, but it's happening. They're overheating. And again, there's also 4 shifts. There's A, B, C, D. So these are only the calls that I've encountered. There are other shifts that have encountered very similar and sometimes different calls.
Okay. So now transitioning to this, another resource-related question. With 4th of July just passing and concerning other festivals of this sort where people are burning fireworks and sparklers, etc., what kind of work do you have to do? And is there like an increased number of people on call, if that's on call, like, or on standby on days like this, just to ensure everyone's safety, particularly when the town is doing fireworks? What's the fire department's involvement in that?
Yeah, there's a ton of planning beforehand. And the cool part is, even when keeping people safe, it's not up to one agency. When they start planning for the fireworks, or they start planning for road races, because we have the Colony 5K. I think the fire department definitely has a 5K and half marathon.
Yeah.
Clam Jam, I think, was in the news a lot. SantaCon, all these things need a lot of resources. Yes, the fire department definitely will man, an extra truck. They will have maybe a command vehicle down there. They will have a gator down there so that they could access the beach a lot easier, because when you have so many people, it's hard for Engine 1 or anybody up at Station 1 to come down to that situation and find where the person of interest might be, or the injured party. So yes, we do put people down in the location closer for these large gatherings. But it really comes down to like fire, PD, public works, health department. They all work together and they say, what do we need to do? What do we need to do better from last year? And it's a lot of minds coming together.
Okay. And have you been involved in any of these 4th of July related celebrations?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would be on the engine, but luckily we're lucky that nothing really transpires. Like there's not like a catastrophe. Sure, somebody will maybe get sick or pass out on the beach, but we're ready for that. There's ambulances with AMR staged right there, but basically it's just being there in case, and hope you're not needed, I guess.
Yeah. And who is actually launching the fireworks? Like last Sunday when we had the actual Fairfield town fireworks, would it be a firefighter or a private company?
Yeah, it'll be a private company, but that brings me, I completely forgot to, we also have the Marine division. So we do have our boats out there also. And from what I remember, there is always a fire marshal on the barge the night of the fireworks to just, overwatching the whole operation.
Making sure everything's running smoothly.
Correct.
So I can tell that's such a big effort on the part of all of you guys. So now transitioning to a little bit of a different questions. A common question that's asked and that I've been wondering, and I thought this is a great opportunity to get that answered. In what situation would you call the fire department's non-emergency number, which is on the website, versus just calling 911?
All right. So non-emergency calls would be, hey, I locked my keys out of my car. Hey, I locked myself out of my house. I've fallen, or my husband has fallen, or my wife has fallen, and we're just having a hard time getting them up. They don't need any medical assistance. We just can't get them off the floor. Beeping smoke detectors and CO detectors, not going off because of smoke, just malfunctioning. We're very good with, alarm systems and detection. So we can come out and provide you with a new smoke detector, or a new battery, because we want those things functioning, because that's your nose at night. You're not smelling anymore. You're going to sleep. So we want that detection up, and we'll provide it if necessary, if yours is malfunctioning. Flooding conditions, certain issues with your house that, you just don't know how to shut something off. We're all very good with building construction and just the general gist of how things work in the house.
Okay, so you just to make everything run smoothly would be a non-emergency call when anything.
Correct. It's not going to be like, I'm sick. There's smoke. There's an odor that we're all going code 1 to, or code 1 is lights and sirens.
Understood. So transitioning from this, to learn more about yourself, and could you tell us a little bit about how your 24 hours at the fire department, like what a day-to-day routine from checking in up until checking out?
Yep. It's definitely a loaded question. This is like a long, question, but the general gist of it is you walk in for your shift, you go to this board, it's made out with where everybody's riding generally. You go find that person. You kind of have a face-to-face. They share what they did the night before or the day before, and that helps pass down some knowledge of what's going on in the town. If you have reoccurring alarms, you know that they were there before, but you have a face-to-face and talk about what you used, what gear you used, if there were any problems, like, if you're a driver, hey, the coolant light kept going on and off. So when maintenance gets in, can you have them take a look at that? Once they leave, it's your job now to go around the truck, turn your meters on, check the lights, check your EMS bag, make sure your pulse ox is working. So you're basically, we touch our stuff so much, just making sure it's ready for when we need it. After that, we're there for a 24-hour shift, so we are living together. We will sit down in the kitchen, we'll have a little breakfast, but while that's going on, we're talking about the day. Does the department have any training for us that day? What we would like to accomplish that day in the sense of maybe some in-house training. Then we'll, and that's kind of the general shit. And while all this is going on, we're having calls come in. So sometimes our best laid plans, I can't wait to do this. It just doesn't happen because we get 7 EMS calls. But we really set out the day, what we plan to do, and we hope it materializes. But a lot of the times it's training, learn your streets. There's just so much that we can be going over throughout the day.
And when you get a call, are you guys typically using GPS, or you guys know the areas you cover pretty well?
We know the areas we cover very well. There's nothing wrong with, looking up an address, using the resources that you have, maybe even in your phone. But when dispatch notifies you, let's say you're drawing a blank on a street, they always give you cross streets. So it's between here and here. Usually one of them will jog your memory. So you'll pick up on something.
Okay, I'm glad. Now, would you ever leave a firehouse empty? Like all the people within that house would head out to one call? Is that a thing? That could happen?
It does happen, but we have a process for that. So if, in the middle of the night, engine 1, rescue 1, go to an alarm. And now it looks like it's going to be a long call. Even though we're going to leave engine 4 a little empty, engine 4 will move to station 1 because it's a little bit more centrally located. You can still respond very quickly back to 4s, but now you can respond in 1s also. So we do cover each other's backs when we have calls that take a little longer than usual.
And station 1 is down at Reef Road, correct?
Station 1's down on Reef Road. The station I'm at, Jennings, is on Jennings Road, station number 2.
And does that serve like the whole Fairfield Woods neighborhood?
Fairfield Woods, it's pretty close. That's I would say, and that's engine 2. But there's always little cross sections where engine 3 will get a little bit of Fairfield Woods, and even some of our neighbors that would go to Jennings Elementary and live up on Shelter Rock up in 5's district.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So they're covered by Station 5, even though they go to our schools.
Okay, understood. So now transitioning of a couple more questions for you. How do you think the Fairfield Fire Department has changed since you joined, either for better or for worse?
I would say it's always for better, and it's always out of some sort of need. Yeah. And I'm going back really far, and I'm a little iffy on this, but I don't think we ever had a trench rescue ability when I first came on. That was a program developed, I think, by then Lieutenant Higgins, now Chief Higgins, and that is as our town is getting bigger and growing, as we all know, I have a hard time sometimes calling it a town anymore. It's turning into like a little city with what's going on around the train stations, all the road work that's going on. When people are in a trench or digging up a gas line, like there's the possibility of that stuff collapsing in on the worker that's in the hole. So we developed this trench rescue course and ability to help save people if they become entrapped in that. We have always changed our equipment. Our equipment has changed as times have changed. We used to have very basic rope rescue equipment. I mean, now we have geniuses on our fire department that just love rope rescue and always are advocating for the best and easiest to deploy equipment and the safest. We developed a dive team. I forget exactly how many members. And a quick little story, I would actually say that I was somewhat instrumental in the dive team. I was a very good swimmer. And I found myself having to deal with a lot of, I'll just say, drownings. And being a good swimmer, I could go down really deep. I could search for people, but I never was able to save or retrieve anybody. And I kind of went to our chiefs and I'm like, I'm tired of being put in this position where I can't do anything. So we need to figure out a way for me to succeed, or you need to develop a dive team. So now we have a dive team,
Wow, because of you.
It was out of a need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to this, now it seems like the dive team was a very rewarding moment of your career, the founding of the dive team, I guess, Brian Madia. What would you say is the most rewarding part of your entire job and your career as a firefighter?
So it's basically still just always goes back to helping people. Things that I love about my job. I love everything about my job. There's not a call I don't want to go on. There's not a person that I don't want to help. Some of the things that I find very rewarding that you may not hear of are like programs with seniors, the Fairfield Fire Department and the Fire Marshal's Office. And I think they work with the senior center. Our seniors in our town know that they can, there's a program, and we're going to go out and we're going to replace every battery, or if the smoke detector needs to be replaced, we will replace it. And it's hundreds of visits to seniors throughout like a course of a week or two. And I truly love that interaction. I love going out and chatting with these people, and I feel like they're looking forward to seeing us. So I find it very rewarding, and the conversations I have, and engaging with the community outside of an emergency. It's nice, and I love our little tours. Like when, like you said, Lieutenant Edmondson came in and taught you guys fire safety. We're always doing that. That's our job. Like we get young kids that come into the firehouse and just can't, wait to spray the hose. And, we teach them about 911 and stop, drop, and roll. And it's just, those are some very rewarding situations that we get to do outside of the emergencies, which are also rewarding in helping people.
Yes, and now before we wrap up, I always end all the interviews with favorite thing about your job and at least favorite thing about your job. And I know we kind of touched on your favorite thing. So do you have a specific least favorite part about your job that you would like to share?
I mean, it's splitting hairs, but it's like, we have this thing called Saturday maintenance. I feel like it could be done a little different or a little better, but basically on a Saturday, our whole Saturday is eaten up checking our equipment. Like in our EMS bag, we have 20 Band-Aids. So it's like 1, 2, 3, like That part of my job, I'm not the craziest about. It's still needed. We need to know that the equipment's there. We need to know that we're adequately, prepared for any situation. But it just gets a little monotonous. But I would say that's the only thing. It's not really a dislike because you're still out there on the apparatus floor, working with your crew, talking with your crew. And again, it's like family makes it easier to deal with those kind of things.
And this has been super cool today because it just goes to show that firefighters do much, much more than just simply putting out fires.
Indeed, we do.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say, Mr. Madia, before we end this episode, this spectacular?
Yeah, I just thank you for having me. I think what you're doing is awesome. And it was very nice that you kind of like forced me to go back and think about parts of my career and my journey that I haven't thought about or forgot about in such a long time. So it was nerve-wracking, surprisingly, but it was a lot of fun to go back and just remember some things that I had forgotten. And I appreciate you for making me and forcing me to do that with this interview.
Yeah, it's super fun to go back and hear other people's stories, especially people with so much experience and so smart in their field, such as yourself. It's really insightful and it's a great experience.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, with that, thank you so much for watching, Political Peeps, and thank you so much to Mr. Madia for joining me here on the GeoPolitical. You guys know the drill. I'll catch you next time. Peace out, dudes.